Allie has been curious about pleasure and sexuality since childhood, but like so many, her relationship with sex hasn't always been one of empowerment. As a recovering people pleaser, she often prioritised her partner's pleasure, using sex as a way to get love and avoid abandonment, an approach that never truly fulfilled her. A lifelong dancer, former yoga instructor, and health enthusiast, Ali has always had a deep connection to her body's wisdom. Yet she also knows the struggle of overthinking, again, is stuck in her head. Her personal journey has been about finding balance between thinking and feeling, productivity and pleasure, healing alone and in connection. As a certified sex and intimacy coach, Allie Andrews helps individuals and couples deepen their connections and experience more fulfilling sex. She's passionate about guiding people to be more embodied and embrace their sexuality, feelings, needs, desires, and boundaries so they can experience more self love, pleasure, and intimacy. Something we could all do with more of. So, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you joining me today. Um, I wanted to start by, if it's okay, taking you back a little bit to understand your formative years. What were they like? What were you like? And did health and wellness always play a big part in your life?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I was thinking back and I think a big part of like what kind of made me who I am is the family, the family I grew up in. I grew up in a big family, a blended family. I had have lots of siblings. Um, so a big part of, yeah, my journey has been kind of like finding my voice actually, because it was easy in that space, being kind of one of the younger siblings to kind of blend in. Um, but yeah, really like there's been a part of me that has, my whole life since I was little been pretty tolerant of risk, of like stepping outside of the normal path in life. And so I think that's a big part of what I do now, of course, working in the field of sex. But I would say, as far as health and wellness, as for those who are listening, I used to be a holistic health coach and a yoga teacher, and I did that for 10 years. And I think my mom's always been a bit health conscious. Her valuing health really like definitely rubbed off on me. But actually, as a teen, I was pretty rebellious. I experimented a lot with drugs and alcohol, as many teens do. And kind of reflecting back now, I realize that it was actually one of the many ways that I used to dissociate from my felt experience. And so I can see that very clearly now that, like, for a long time, I wasn't oriented around like mindfulness and embodiment and really like taking care of myself like I am now. And that didn't really like root in me until actually I really dove into yoga and started to study and practice and did my teacher training. And I feel like that was when those kind of philosophies of, mental and emotional and spiritual well-being really took root, and I really found that path that I'm still on now. It looks different than it did, 10, 15 years ago, but it's still very much a part of my philosophy.
And I've only ever done yoga a few times. I feel bad admitting that. But does it really put you in touch with your body in a different way to other sort of sports and I guess health and wellness regimes?
I think so. I think it's more intentional, and there are certainly a lot of other practices
Mhm.
that do this. But I think it's about really embodiment, right? Like feeling what's going on in your body and breathing into it without reacting.
Mm.
So it might be like holding a position that is maybe challenging or a little uncomfortable and breathing into it and settling into it. And that is so applicable, right, in life when we encounter challenging situations.
Mm.
How do we respond? And so I think it's a combination of like my growing up and being a dancer and yoga, and then yoga helping me more with that connection to sensation, that like somatic sensory experience, which has really supported me in kind of going this path of embodiment and working with that so much with my clients, but also in my own life. It's like feeling my felt experience in the moment, in my body, without judgment and even with love, and curiosity for what's arising and without trying to analyze it. And that is such a powerful skill, even in life and intimacy, right? When we're
Mm.
triggered, it's showing up in our body first, right? And then
Mhm.
often we create stories in our mind about what's happening. But if we can feel what's happening in our body and kind of connect with the emotions and the sensations, it's a really powerful to communicate from that place. So, yeah, I think yoga, I mean, I don't actually practice a lot of yoga anymore. um, I kind of, and I know maybe we'll get to this later, but like I kind of got burnt out on yoga, actually. It's possible. Um,
Sounds like it sort of sounds like getting. I got too drunk on water. It
yeah,
almost sounds like
yeah,
complete oxymoron. How can you get burnt out on yoga? It literally is
yeah.
meant to be the opposite. Yeah.
I know, I know. I think I can get really, again, that like addictive personality that
Yeah.
I have. Um, I needed a change, and so I do practice it here and there. But again, those philosophies and those teachings that were so woven into me from years and years and years of doing it are still very much with me.
So you spent time being a health and wellness coach, spent
Mhm.
time being a yoga instructor. What did it feel like a big step change to become a certified sex and intimacy coach, to invest the time and the resources in changing? What do you think it was that led you to want to do that?
Yeah, it was a big shift. I mean, I could have. I certainly wasn't starting from scratch, so that was helpful. As a coach, anyways, I had experience coaching, but I I kind of had the intuition a few years before I actually made the plunge. That's kind of how my intuition works. It's kind of like I just know things, and then when I'm ready, I make the shift. But yeah, as we talked about a little in my intro, relationships, intimacy, sex, has been always it's been a healing path in my life. It's been a place that I've found a lot of healing and connection, but also struggled a lot. And so when I was kind of going on my own sexual and intimacy healing journey, I had worked with a coach at the time, a relationship coach, and I found it really, really helpful. And I had like a lot of big breakthroughs. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. Um, Maybe I'll do that someday. And of course, I was already working as a coach at the time, as a health coach.
Mhm.
And then I met my current partner. I feel like I, I kind of called in the partner that I needed and also figured out how I needed to show up in the relationship to create that relationship that I wanted. And so after doing all that work, and of course, I'm still working on on how I show up in intimacy. It's a forever journey. I felt ready to make a shift. And actually, the pandemic was a big factor in that because my business at the time, I have a, still have on the side a corporate wellness business where
Mhm.
all of the work was on site with companies. So the pandemic kind of changed that.
Yeah.
Um, and I had a little bit of space to explore what might be next. And that's when I enrolled with the Somatica Institute out of San Francisco and started their training. And I've done all their trainings and just like gobbled it all up. Um, and and yeah, I think the hardest part was me coming out to the world as a sexual being, and being transparent in my mailing list on social media, that this is who I am and this is what I'm doing. And I've come so far from when I started, when I was scared to like send an email with the word sex in it. What are people going to think? Are they going to get in trouble? Um, and now, I've come so far, but that was definitely a challenge. Just hey world, this is me. This is who I am. Again, part of that journey of
Yeah.
finding my voice and living an authentic life.
It's really interesting you say that, because I sort of launched this podcast only sort of this week, actually, at the time of recording. And I was saying before we hit record, it's been a fabulous experience so far, and I spent quite a few months working on it and planning it. And it's just something that a few people have said on my other podcast, and people that sort of listen to, a bit like you, they had that sort of intuition that this was a better place for me to be. But I have been sort of debating what to what to put out on LinkedIn. Other social media is fine, and Instagram and everything else, but on LinkedIn, I think people look at it and think, "Hey, I'm here, and we're talking about sex and intimacy, and it's relationships." People, are like, what? And it's almost, yeah. I'm trying to get the words right, so I've been asking AI, what
Oh,
should I write on LinkedIn? How
that's
can I make
great.
it professional as well as being interesting? But yeah, I'm
Yeah.
not sure where to.
AI doesn't like to talk about sex. I think it's
It
changing
doesn't.
with
No.
ChatGPT a little bit.
Yeah.
I seem like I can get away with more, but for a while it was like, oh, I can't answer that question. Um, but yeah, LinkedIn is a tough space to talk about sex, although there are people that do it really
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So
I mean, it's not necessarily where people come and look for this sort of stuff. So
that's true.
there are
But
other platforms that are much
busy professionals,
easier. Yeah.
workaholics, they need this stuff more than ever, you know?
Do, and that's my yeah, and that's part of my thing for doing this, having these amazing conversations is twofold, really. So one, I have two teenage children, and I think the education and conversation around sex, sexuality, intimacy, relationships is woefully inadequate in our education system. And I know in the US you've got your own problems right now with that. And I think as parents, as carers, as guardians, we have a greater responsibility to be able to talk about this openly. It's, there's no reason not to talk about these things. These are perfectly natural, and yeah, you want to be able to talk about things, especially with the sheer volume of, and I advisedly say, information that's out there as opposed to knowledge. So I think if you're on social media or whatever, you can be bombarded with stuff, but it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's just so much stuff coming at you. You don't know what's right, what's wrong, all those sort of things. People go and look in interesting places to find answers. So I think trying to have a conversation with people that are experts like you, hopefully, will make the conversation something that feels a little bit easier. Um,
Yeah, it's so important too, especially with how accessible pornography is for
yeah,
kids. That's a lot of times becoming their sex education, which is different than, how I grew up and probably how you grew up.
yeah,
It wasn't as accessible, and I think it's dangerous if your kid, and I say the proverbial you, like, is watching porn and you're also not talking to them about sex and what's healthy and what's normal and what's, consent, like what consent means, and
yeah.
that their pleasure is really important, and all of that, I think, is it's really important to be having those conversations
Mm.
at a young age, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a sort of older generation than you, obviously, and porn for me growing up was might have been an older brother's magazine that somebody brought into
Yeah.
school. Oh my god, it's a naked woman. There was
Yeah.
no internet. There was no, it was amazing, or a naked man, whatever your type is. But it was wow. But there was no internet, no smartphone, nothing like that at all. And I think the average age that boys in particular see porn now is 12 or 13,
Yeah.
which that's pretty young to have an understanding of what relationship and intimacy is. And I talked to two people. One is an adult content creator who was wonderful with her thought and how open she was. And she said, "Look, porn is entertainment. I'd hate to think people use it for education. It's not for that." And then I talked to a feminist porn director last night, Inka Winter, and she was fabulous. She was talking about the porn she creates is very sort of holistic, and that they have a full dialogue about consent within the film itself. It's not something that's just you sort of assume, because if you're somebody that's relatively young, a teenager or even an adult, and you would see porn and believe that that is what sex and intimacy is all about, it puts a ridiculous expectation on you as as a man to perform, you as a woman to perform, you as a man and woman together. It's not
It's not
real life.
it's
It
not
is
real.
entertainment. It's super.
Yeah, it's created for entertainment, exactly, just like romantic rom-coms and Disney movies and happily ever after isn't real life. It's the same with porn, and I think it's a great tool for arousal, and it's a very efficient, for most of us, efficient pathway to arousal. But I think we have to know that that's what it is, and the problem with younger kids is they don't know that. Um, they don't have that same kind of coming at it from the same perspective, and so I think it can be dangerous, especially where majority of mainstream porn isn't representing modeling women's pleasure, right? It's
No.
like it's showing kind of the man's like pathway to pleasure and orgasm, but it's not modeling what is pleasurable for most women. So I think that that's really problematic.
Yeah, if you watched that and believed it, you wouldn't believe that, well, 70 to 80% of women don't orgasm from penetration. You
Right.
wouldn't believe it. It's all about. It is generally about men. I think the word's right. Taking pleasure, and I
Mhm.
think that's yeah, something that, I mean, you talk to. I think 50% of men don't believe women masturbate. I think 70% of men believe that women do orgasm through penetration. So there's a big disconnect between the facts
There's
and
a
the
big
and what
disconnect.
people believe. So
Yeah.
when you first have a client come to you, and we said before we hit record, it's a big thing for somebody to come and talk to you.
Mhm.
What do they tend to present with an issue that they want to get fixed? Do they believe something's wrong? And how do they manifest themselves when they come to you? And how do you approach them when they first turn up?
Yeah, I think the majority of people do come in with, yeah, it's either something to fix or a desire that they have,
Okay.
right? Maybe they've never had an orgasm or they've never had sex with anybody before and they are longing for that connection and that intimacy. Maybe they're married and in a long-term relationship, and things are going well for the most part, but their sex life is just like either non-existent or really struggling, or maybe they're holding a lot of resentment for their partner,
Hmm.
and they want to work through that. So yeah, I would say that there's usually a reason why people come. Pain is very motivating, as we know, and sometimes people come just because they want to kind of go on the journey and they're on a healing journey and they know that sexuality is a piece that they've kind of skipped and they're ready to tackle that.
Yeah.
Um, and I try to create a space that is as safe and kind of playful and light as possible in the beginning, because I know it's really intense. A lot of people aren't used to, like, some people come to me and they've never really talked to anyone about their sex life. These are adults coming to me, and let alone, their partner, friends, they just don't talk about it. So there's an edge, right? We talk a lot about growing edges in the coaching world of in my specific um, coaching method. It's what are your edges when it comes to intimacy? What are the barriers to intimacy that are unique to you? And one of them is just for often just talking about sex, right? So kind of starting there and going at their pace, not jumping in too quickly, but also joining them and being vulnerable with them so that they don't feel like they're alone divulging all these things to me, that like, and then they feel super vulnerable, and
Yeah.
they have that kind of vulnerability hangover. I really try to kind of join them and share with them when I think it would be in service to them, my own vulnerabilities or my own desires, and celebrate their desires as much as possible, because I think a lot of times people are wondering if they're weird for what they like, and most of the time no. Like, I've heard it all, and more people like what you like than you would think. They're just not outright saying it.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, I guess if you're in a long-term relationship, you find out hopefully a bit about each other in the beginning. You find things that hopefully you both enjoy at the beginning. It it's not something you typically revisit. It's not like, right, every January, right, we should have a sort of talk about our sort of sex life and how things are going. And because what people liked 5 years ago might be different now, or 10 years ago, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
Our bodies change. Women go through occasionally. Might go through pregnancy. They go through menopause. Men have the body shape changes. They might have erectile dysfunction. A lot of things change within a period of 5, 10, 20, 40 years.
Yeah.
But if in your mind you've got this thing about, right, so what she or he likes is kiss the neck and then put the hand here and then put the hand here and then we do this and it's, yeah, you sort of almost to assume that everything's, it's almost like eating the same meal every day.
Yeah.
You love the meal. It's an amazing meal, but if you have it every day, it can get a little bit. I might want to try something else. And
Boring.
as you said, it's just how do you almost put your hand up and say, this thing we were doing for the last sort of 10 years. Yeah, I quite like it, but actually, I'd like to try some. Let's try some sushi or some or something. If you're talking about food, I want to try something different. So it's, yeah, I think coming to somebody like you, going to you, I guess it helps them feel that it's a good place, a good space to talk about those things, as opposed to trying to do it and be on their home ground. So yeah, I can understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's vulnerable to say, "Hey, like you said, that thing you've been doing for the past few years, I don't actually like it that much." That's really scary to say,
It
and
is.
I mean, there's been moments where I've done, I've felt that fear of like, "Oh, no, I don't wanna, like, hurt his feelings or make him feel ashamed." But saying it is, like, the best thing because whenever we're experiencing something that's not pleasurable, when we're enduring sexually, even
Mm,
emotionally, then we can't experience pleasure at the same time, right? So it's like that
mm,
those it's like a turn off, a break, putting the brakes on to our arousal and our turn on. And so but having those conversations is really scary and really vulnerable. And that's why when couples come to me, I do like to meet with each one separately
mhm,
because there are often things that it's like, "Oh, yeah, it's okay, but I don't love it." And so it's like, "Okay, let's talk about that. Let's figure out how we can communicate that with your partner and find out what you do love. Get to know your erotic mind, get to know your pathways to arousal, get to know the feelings you want to feel from sex and erotic connection so that we can expand the menu. You talked about food, like let's expand the menu of options
mm,
that get you the feelings you want to feel. Some people would be okay with eating the same thing every day sexually, right? Like that would actually be what they want. But other people want more variety, want more novelty. So it's really getting to know each individual in a couple and then finding those bridges between their desires and their turn-ons.
mm. I think one of the things you talk about is helping clients embrace their authentic selves. And I wondered and you've obviously been through this. How do you guide people to try and overcome those people pleasing tendencies? And is part of that being able to love ourselves?
Yeah. I mean, I think it starts with accepting what we're feeling in the moment, accepting our boundaries, attuning to our own boundaries, attuning to our desires, letting our desires live and breathe in us, even if we don't speak them right away. And when I say desires, like the things that we want, it could be food, it could be something sexual, it could
Yeah.
be a trip we want to take, it could be a,
Mhm.
piece of clothing we want. I think so many of us are used to just like shutting down, especially sexually, shutting down our desires. And it kind of leads to like this, yeah, like, can I, people pleasing at its root is essentially, I want to try to be the person who's going to be the most lovable to you or the most likable to you. And so it starts with kind of really looking at that and saying, okay, rather than pretending that you're not upset or pretending that you don't have this need that you really do have, or letting people kind of steamroll your boundaries because you're afraid to push them away or be mean or them to get upset, then let's start with just attuning to in the moment. What are you feeling? How does it feel when I get a little bit closer to you? Is that a boundary? helping people feel their felt boundaries in their body, their embodied boundaries in the moment, and start to get used to tracking those all the
Mhm.
time. And then eventually, when they feel ready, start to get used to how to communicate that in a loving and connected way when with, someone they love and they want intimacy with. And the same goes for feelings and needs and desires. So yeah, I think overcoming people pleasing is challenging, and I think it's really important to take away the shame around people pleasing, because a lot of people feel shame for being a people pleaser. I like to call myself a recovering people pleaser because I still have those tendencies. They're so deeply woven in me. And those of us that have those tendencies have them because we had to do that. We had to do that at some point in our lives, usually in childhood, to get our needs met, whether those
Yeah.
were emotional or physical needs. That was required to us to an extent. Um, and it doesn't mean we had to have this traumatic childhood. Like, it can come in all different ways, reasons why people please. But I think it's important to be gentle with ourselves around it, and to know that, it was at one point essential, and it no longer is. And it's actually a big block to intimacy, people pleasing.
Mm. Yeah, one of the ways that I see it in people is when you might ask somebody, so where do you want to go for dinner tonight? And rather than answer, they'll say, I don't mind, where do you want to go? And it's sort of, which is, oh, where do you want to go on holiday this year? Yeah, I don't mind, what do you think? And I think, well, I'd just like you to answer the bloody question. But it is that, I guess the person's thinking, well, and they might not really mind, but sometimes you do want an answer. Yes, so that same thing. So what do you want to do in bed tonight? I don't mind. What do you want to do? It's not. Yeah. So I think it's not just a sexual thing. It's a whole life thing, isn't it? That you
It is.
reflect back to the other person. And so right, I'm giving them permission to answer. When actually they just occasionally just tell me what restaurant you want to go to. Just tell me
Yeah.
where you want to go on holiday. That'd be so nice. But yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that you use that example, because actually one of the most powerful teachings that I got is so simple. It's from a woman I went to who's called herself a soul reader. And I was working on all these things, working a lot of my people pleasing and caretaking tendencies, right? Putting other people's feelings, comfort, needs before my own.
Mm.
And one of the things she said is, she's like, when, my boyfriend at the time asks you, where you want to go out to eat, if you want to have, sushi or Mexican, and you say, sushi, and he says, oh, I really feel like Mexican, and you go with his choice, but you really don't want that. Like, you're lying, actually, in that moment. You're
Yeah.
lying. And so, yes, there is some compromise that comes, but don't lie. Like, say what you really want to do. And that was actually so helpful, because even though it was as simple as food we were going to eat, and I love both sushi and Mexican, actually, so those weren't great examples, but um it does, it spreads out and through all other areas of life. And if we can practice it in something as low stakes as what restaurant we want to go to, then it starts to feel easier in other places as well.
And I think it's whether research supports us or not, but I think it's a very attractive quality when somebody says what they want. Whether it is as simple as a meal or a holiday or whatever, or should I buy these jeans or these jeans? When somebody tells you what they think, it's it I don't know. There's something about it is very attractive, as opposed to that sort of. It feels quite passive when somebody says, "Yeah, I don't mind. What do you want?" Or you go
Mhm.
along with what somebody else wants, even though it's not what you want. So I think there's that. Yeah, I think something in somebody grabbing what they want or telling you what they want. There's something about that I think is quite powerful.
I do too. Yeah, it's like, and in the realms of intimacy and sex, it's like, teach me how to love you. Like, I don't know. I'm not in your body. I don't know what you need. I don't know how you're feeling. I don't know how you like to be touched. Like, teach me. Tell me, teach me. I want to know so I can do it right for you.
It's interesting you say that. I talked to a somatic practitioner who's based in Bali. Lovely where she was,
Mm.
and she was very passionate about the importance of us understanding our own bodies. An example she gave was so when we're young and we're younger and we start to have feelings about our bodies and things, we might decide we want to masturbate and start, etc. We generally rush through that because we're scared that somebody's suddenly going to turn the doorknob or somebody's going to burst in or whatever. So we never really relax and explore ourselves. And I just wonder what you thought about the importance of knowing how different things make you feel when it's just you by yourself.
Yeah, it's such an important part of partner pleasure, self pleasure, um, taking responsibility for our own pleasure is so important. And the only way to do that is to learn what we like and what we don't
Mm,
like. And one of the ways to do that is to do it, on our own in our own self-pleasure practice. I think it's so important slowing down with ourselves and even like creating that time
mm,
for pleasure and exploration and embodiment and being in my body with sensations and seeing what feels good. It's like that practice in and of itself is such a bold um, decision in this day and age when it's all about accomplishments and productivity and getting things done and like pleasure
absolutely.
is a profound act of like self-love and overcoming talk about overcoming people pleasing, right? Like making time and space for your pleasure just because, not because there's any goal or outcome you're looking for, just because your pleasure matters is really, really important. So I totally agree. Get to know your own body. There's ways to do that. Part of the work that I do when I'm seeing clients in person and even online, like there are ways that I can adapt practices and tools, but we may incorporate some touch based work to help people see like what do I like, what don't I like, and then if you want to take it a step further to actually engage in like genital touch with a professional, then there are somatic sex educators, sexological body workers who can help you learn more about what you like and what you don't like. And it's through the practice of one-way touch. So you're not expected to touch them back. You're not
Mhm.
expected to do anything for them. It's all about you and them helping you learn your body. Um, I'm actually just coming off of a week long retreat of that, which was amazing. I was an attendee, so it's very much front of mind right now. But there's lots of ways to learn your body, and I think it's really important that we take responsibility for our pleasure rather than expecting our partner to know how to please us. We have to be really engaged in our own arousal.
Yeah, and it's just a nice time to put aside to indulge yourself, really. So you make sure everybody's out of the house and the sun's shining through and you're comfortable and you're relaxed, you've got the right music on or whatever.
Mhm.
It's just a time where you can actually, and it sounds quite selfish, just do what pleases you. And very, very few of us do that. We like say we please other people or we go along with things, but actually taking half an hour, 2 hours, a whole day, for goodness sake, just enjoying being with yourself, I think is so valuable. I think.
It's so valuable. I think that's that space, embodied self pleasure, self touch, breath, sound, movement,
Mm.
all of those components. That I think being in that space with myself, incorporating all those different things, has been probably the most profound practice when it comes to loving myself, loving my body, being with the different parts of my body, really attending to the different parts and seeing like, oh yeah, how does my arm like to be touched? How do my
Yeah,
thighs like to be touched? How does my pussy like to be touched? Like to really take my time as I think that's like been the biggest thing that's helped me like really
that's
love and
good.
accept myself.
Yeah, then to be able to sort of share that feeling and that lived experience with clients, really, and to sort of explain to them that it's and it doesn't sound that complicated. It's not like you need a PhD to be able to do it. It's
Mhm.
hopefully we should know our body better than anybody else, but yet then we expect our partner to be able to yeah
Yeah.
read it like or play it like a piano. And if you've never had a piano lesson, how on earth are you going to know what to play?
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah.
When you have clients that come to you, what do you find are the are the common barriers to intimacy? Is it and I'm sorry, I'm almost answering this question myself. Is it that people have perhaps grown up and it's not something that's been talked about, or if they view sex and intimacy as very different things, or what do you find are the barriers when people talk to you?
Yeah, I think that issue of never learning the skills of intimacy. And when I talk about intimacy, I don't really mean sex.
Mhm.
Sex can be a part of intimacy, but it also I can have intimacy with my sister, I can have intimacy with my best friend. Um, I can have intimacy with my clients, and I'm certainly not having sex with them. So uh, I think intimacy is more of like really bearing your true self to someone and having that reciprocated. Um, and I think that the biggest barrier is, yeah, we don't have the skills, right? We learn through osmosis from our primary caregivers usually, who
Mm.
usually don't have it all figured out. They probably didn't learn those skills either. There was a select few that did, but majority didn't. And through trial and error, right? And a lot of times we're always bringing our wounds, past trauma into our present moment relationship, our attachment wounds, right? We're projecting all of that onto our primary partner if we have one. And it's impossible, just like, most of us, when we go to dance with someone, we might like step on their toe once or twice. Like, it's impossible to be in intimate connection and not step on each other's toes.
Mm.
Um so yeah, I think it's not having the skills of like how to communicate feelings vulnerably in the present moment. Most of us are bottling our feelings up until we get really resentful and then lashing out, or blaming our partner for making us feel some sort of way. um, People don't have the skills to listen with empathy, and they're getting on the defense instead of having that skill of really understanding and empathizing with their partner, which can be so de-escalating. And it's easier said than done. It's hard when we're triggered to do these things. A lot of people don't have the skill of recognizing and sharing their boundaries in the moment. Or maybe they have two boundaries that are too rigid, and they want connection, but their boundaries are so rigid that they're not letting that connection in. So, and then as far as like the sexual piece, I think there's a lot of reasons why that might be lacking, right? A lot of times it's just not having the type of sex we want to be having, right? And it's maybe not really knowing what that looks like, or not knowing how to communicate that or get that for ourselves, not understanding, our own desires, right? Like, the first step to naming a desire and being open and vulnerable about a desire with a partner is knowing what we desire. So a lot of that has that um, kind of work of figuring out what someone wants for themselves happens also in a coaching session.
Mm.
That's kind of usually a starting point. It's like, what do you want for yourself? And like, let's go from there.
And it's not often we ask ourselves that question, I don't think.
No.
Yeah, pose it to us, sit there and think, what do I actually want? And I
Yeah.
think one of the things I'm not sure whether you agree. I think there's a difference between talking about things, and I use bedroom as the place for sex. I know we can have sex everywhere, but talking about something in the middle of sex, I hate when you do that. It's like, what? That's going to put somebody off. If you talk about it over dinner, or talk about it when you're relaxing more and having a conversation, it feels quite different, I think. So sometimes saying something in the moment is really going to, like, say, put someone in the defensive or make somebody upset. They've been doing something that you don't like, whatever. But I think then talking about it afterwards, before, etc., feels like a safer space to talk about it.
Yeah. For a lot of people, it can be more accessible. I
Mm.
agree. And it's kind of figuring out what works. Like, if, if there's a point of like, I'll just use the example of like spitting, because
Mhm.
this is like, a lot of people really like spit play. They like it to get really messy and kind of sloppy. And then, but me, I don't want to be spit on. And so if my partner spits on me, no matter where it is, it's going to be a turn off,
Yeah.
right? And so I could either just let it go and wait to tell him later, but like really be turned off and then have to like
Yeah.
rev myself back up, but also I dissociate a little bit when that happens. I kind of get into my trauma response of like dissociating and fawning, kind
Mm,
of going along with it, even though I really don't, I'm not in it anymore with him. So
mm,
I think there is something to be said for talking about it later when possible, but I think
yeah.
also there's a skill of being able to redirect in the moment that's not like shaming or shutting, the other person down. Of course, they get to decide how they react and that's up to them, but that's kind of sexy and connected, but like for me sometimes it's just is again back to my voice. Like I sometimes just have to say something, hey babe, I really don't like it when you do that, like, and then get some eye contact and like reconnect, and then once I've said it, I can move on from it. I'm good. It's just when I don't speak it that it kind of festers. So that's me, but I think people listening should just check in with their experience. If there are things that feel like a boundary crossing or a turn off during sex, then speaking up in the moment is actually a really amazing skill, and it's scary. But start by, like you said, start by sharing it later. It doesn't have to be in the moment as long as you share it later.
Yeah, or I think maybe more effectively is before. I mean, so a friend of
Yeah.
mine, sort of dates quite widely, and especially when she hooks up with younger guys. She was with one guy, and it just started choking her. She's like, "Fuck, what the fuck are you doing?" She hadn't done it before.
Porn. Porn,
I
right?
thought you liked it, and I think that's one of the things where, yeah, if you're going to spring something on somebody, then I think having the discussion almost beforehand is and that's interesting. I think this is one of the things you can probably learn from the BDSM community, where a lot of the eroticism comes in the negotiation and the talking about things and saying, well, okay, when I say this, then we need to stop, or I do like this, I don't like this. This is a yes, this is a no, this is a maybe. And so anything comes in the no column, what the hell are you doing? The maybe thing, yeah, okay, no, I don't like that. Let's try something else. But I think
Yeah.
we just start having sex. I guess it's as we did when we were younger. First
Yeah.
time we had sex, we had sex, and that's one of the things I've always thought is a bit of a challenge. Is that if you ask somebody what is sex, I think most people in a heterosexual relationship would say, well, it's penis and vagina. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And even the words we use, like, did you have sex with her? Have you had sex with her
Right.
yet? It as opposed to, and even the word foreplay, so well, that comes before the main course. It's like the
Mhm.
food thing again. So no, I just want to have starters today. I just want to have some nibbles and things.
Yeah.
I don't want the big steak at the end of it. So I think, yeah, sometimes we think, right, we'll do all these things, then we'll get to the main event. So I think it's helping people realize that actually sex can be half an hour of kissing. It doesn't need to be
Yeah.
the whole. You're not building up to something. Everything you're
Right.
doing is part of it, and I find that an interesting, yeah, dialogue.
Yeah, absolutely. To kind of take away like the goal oriented mindset
Yeah,
and the script of this is how sex goes and it ends when the man comes.
yeah,
um, that's again the porn script kind of
yeah.
often. But it's not, yeah, like it's so limiting. It's very limiting. So
Mm,
I like to think of like erotic connection, and it's like it can look so many different ways, and it could be mutual masturbation. It could be one partner, pleasuring themselves while the other one like kisses their neck and kind of touches other parts of their body. It could be so many different things. It could not involve genital touch at all.
yeah,
There's so much pleasure that can be found from, expanded arousal, exploring other parts of the body in ways that
mm,
are pleasurable, um, and yeah, knowing what those are. And yeah, I love that you brought that up. And the whole piece about, the negotiation, right? Like the consent conversation is
yeah,
something else I really work with my clients on, of like, how do you like to give consent? How do you
mhm,
like to receive consent? Is that like before a sexual experience? Is that throughout the sexual experience? What are some ways that your partner can check in with you?
yeah,
If you like that, if you don't like that, like let's like teach them how to be more attuned to your body and your physical cues and your verbal cues that, aren't necessarily words. So there's lots of different ways to make consent hot. It doesn't have to be like unsexy. It can be really sexy, and you're still going to miss things. Sometimes you don't figure out if you like something until you try it, and then you realize you don't like it. So,
Hmm. It's like the first time you try olives or an oyster. You think, I might like this. You know, I don't like it. You spit it out. You can't, well, back to spitting again. You can't actually do that in the day. But yeah, sometimes you think you're going to like something, you just don't.
yeah.
But it's okay to try it and then say it. No, I didn't like that.
Yeah.
But I think I think as a man, there are times when I can't get hard, when some men don't get hard, or some men have longer periods of erectile dysfunction, and you don't want to sort of think, okay, we can't have sex now because you have that thing of, well, I can't do that final thing.
Yeah.
But as you said, that's probably the time to explore a lot more, and particularly at certain times of life when women go through menopause and things, it's much harder to lubricate, and they just don't feel comfortable and feel different. The sort of sex you might have been having 5 years ago just doesn't feel like what you want to be doing at the moment. But you don't
Mhm.
want to lose that intimacy as a couple, because then that can create more and more of a divide, I think. So I think it is, it's communication, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
being able to talk to each other without feeling judged or
Yeah.
without feeling not listened to.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so important. And I think like there's so much pressure on men and like cocks to just like be hard and get hard super fast and be super
Yeah.
responsive, and that's just not the reality of how arousal goes. It's a more of a up and down. It's kind of like a wave. It's not just
Mm.
like increasing to the peak. And I think, yeah, like with aging, with changes, bodily changes, like I think it's really important to communicate and, um, not take it personally if your partner's not getting an erection. I think that can be really, really hard on both people.
Yeah.
If it's just like, yeah, it's fine. Let's do something else. Like it doesn't have to be a reason to stop playing and connecting.
Why do you think we why do you think there is still sometimes this shame or stigma around particular sexual desires? Is this a societal thing? Does it come from religion still? Because some things that people might feel deviant or odd or unusual probably aren't at all. And like I say, there's if you're thinking of doing it, I guarantee there's another 1,000 people, million
Yeah,
people are doing the same thing. So
yeah,
you're not that imaginative, believe me. So
yeah.
it's, yeah. Why do you think we still have that shame about it?
I mean, I think as much as we're coming into maybe a more sex positive period, I still
Mhm.
think we live in a pretty sex negative culture where the general perspective is like, um don't like sex too much, right? Especially like it, but don't like it too much.
Yeah,
And there's all of these stigmas around different desires that maybe, like, for example, one of the desires I think that's hard for men to admit is they want to feel like they want to be submissive
yeah,
in bed. And I think a lot of men are like, oh, like I'm the only one who feels this way. Like, oh, but really, my, one of my teachers who specializes more in BDSM, she taught me that between dominance and submission, for every three people that want to be submissive, only one person wants to be dominant. So it's actually a lot more common for someone want to be submissive sexually. And so whether you're a man, woman, non-binary, trans, whatever you identify as, like if you have this desire of being submissive and kind of being the center of someone's attention and them like creating this scene perfectly for you, then that's actually quite common in the whole world of power play. So I think a lot of it is like the stigma comes from just people aren't talking about it and talking openly about their desires. So they think they're alone. And I also think it makes sense people aren't talking openly because that's not modeled for us. We're not taught how to do that. It's not celebrated. And of course, there are spaces where we can't talk openly about our sexual desires. But I think, yeah, it is just such a taboo topic still to this day, even though all
Mm.
those roots of like Puritan culture and religion, like that's all shifting, but I think it does still impact us.
Yeah, I talked to a lady called Alexa Creed in Romania a few weeks ago, and she's a sort of dominatrix, and she was saying when men come to her and want to sort of give control away and want her to be in charge and want to be submissive to them, she says she feels, I think quite rightly, she's providing a service. She says that the general tone of the people that come to her is that I could never say this to my wife, partner, whatever. I could never possibly, because I'm the man, and it's that we're so programmed to think that the man is the dominant, the stronger, the more powerful. At any time, a man might want their anal play or whatever. Think, oh my god, does that mean I'm homosexual? Is that, oh my god, what is that? It's
Yeah.
just, yeah. So it's just things that sadly the men that come to her just can't bring themselves to talk to their partner about it. Um, it was
Yeah.
just sad, I think.
Yeah, it is. It sucks, but I'm
Mm.
glad they have people they can go to and they
Yeah.
feel comfortable going to get those desires fulfilled. I think it's important. But yeah, that's a big part of the work I do is just like helping people find ways to communicate their desires, like first of all, celebrate their desires. It's like
Mm.
so amazing that we have these desires and these ways to find pleasure often, these feelings that we want to feel from sex, whether it's submissive, dominant, degraded, loved, special, spiritual, like there's all different feelings we can want to feel, but they often come from a place of pain or struggle or challenge.
Yeah.
And we figure out how to get pleasure, how to reclaim those challenging experiences in a way that's pleasurable. And it's actually deeply healing when we can fulfill our desires in that way. And so I think it
Mm.
is really important. And when we don't, sometimes desires just live in the mind, and that's great. That's okay. We can use the world of fantasy in very powerful ways sexually to feel the feelings we want to feel. And that's sometimes some things are just meant to live there. But other times, like when we actually can manifest what we want to feel and like live out these desires and live out our fantasies, like it can be so, so healing.
It's very interesting you say that. So I think that's yeah, something I think sometimes people don't appreciate. There are some fantasies that we have no desire to actually do, and then there are other fantasies we have that we can develop the sort of story around them. So I think, I don't know. So there's I guess a relatively typical fantasy is that you want to be, as a woman, you want to be taken by a stranger or whatever. You want to meet a stranger and have sex with them. That's it. There's no reason why you can't arrange to meet your partner in a hotel bar and you meet each other. You don't know each other. In the
Hmm.
story, you go up to the room and you take her or she takes you or whatever. It's You're delivering the fantasy, but in a safe way. So I think sometimes we sort of think, right, I've got to. Well, no, my fantasy is when I'm taken by a stranger. The role play is the partner becomes a stranger, and so
Yeah.
I think that whole role play thing is, yeah, I think really underexplored. I think so. We
Hmm.
can we can do some amazing things by
Hmm.
pretending, by acting, for goodness sake.
Acting it out. Yeah, absolutely. I love role play. I think it's so fun. It's so sexy. Um, yeah. And you're, the difference is, right? Like you're taking this situation that might be potentially like dangerous and
Yeah,
unsafe, and you're making it safe by doing it between two consenting adults and
yeah.
still creating the feelings that you want to feel. And yeah, it's really amazing.
Isn't it? And there's plenty of erotic literature out there that has amazing stories, fantasies, thoughts, whatever. So it's not that. people think, oh, I can never be imaginative enough to think about that. It
Mhm.
absolutely can. There are lots and lots of places to go and have ideas and talk about and learn about role play. So,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of I mean, I was kinda like this. I didn't think I really had any fantasies. I was like and then a lot of my clients, mostly female clients, I would say, come in, it's like, "I don't really have any fantasies." But then we start digging in and there's, like, flashes of things or, like, we always can find something, whether it's, like, a full scene or just, like, a flash or a montage of things, like, there are, um I think we all have fantasies and they're inside of all of us. We just have to do a little digging sometimes.
Mm. Do you ever, do you ever, do you ever find you sort of have clients, you talk to them, and you come home and think, wow, this client, I never thought about that. Why don't we try this? And you get ideas, you get ideas from
Oh,
clients.
um, I'm trying to think. I know I have had that. I know I have had that experience before. I'm trying to think
Lovely.
if I have any examples of it.
No, it's okay. No, I love the idea that you go in there and think, gosh,
But no.
I thought all of my fantasies. No, actually, no, I really hadn't thought about yeah, being in a car or being on a beach or being on a mountain, whatever.
Yeah,
Somebody did say to me actually, having sex on the beach is just a nightmare. Sand gets
yeah.
everywhere,
I
and it's
don't think
super
I would like it.
uncomfortable. Looks great in the films, but yeah, yeah, and the stick to reality is
Yeah.
somewhere
Yeah,
different.
I don't think I would like that too much, but yeah, it definitely doing this work, it definitely keeps my sex life interesting. I'm always trying new things. I've recently discovered that I love playing with rope. Um, I like being contained. I like the way it looks on my body. I like the way it feels. It's like a little bit of scratchiness and like a little bit of discomfort, but really like that feeling of being held. I like the care and attention that goes into creating the patterns and doing the different designs.
Have you been to a shibari class?
I haven't been to any shibari classes.
So it's no same. It always looks so beautiful.
It is
Typically, when they
beautiful.
use and you see images of it, it tends to be a beautiful, soft sort of red rope, and then a lot of it is the intricate patterns that are
Mhm.
formed. It just looks, yeah. It's very sorry. It almost feels more erotic art than anything else.
Yeah,
It's just that the beautiful, and then when it comes off, the pattern is still part
yeah,
of your body, and it's not like having a bra strap digging into you. It's a it's a beautiful sort of pattern that's
yeah.
left.
I
I
love
like.
that those rope tattoos.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was blessed when I went on this retreat through Back to the Body. They do pleasure retreats, for lack of a better word. And I work with a sexological body worker for 5 days, 5 sessions, and he was amazing at shibari. He was so skilled. So he had my legs suspended from the ceiling at one point, and just did these beautiful designs on me. And so it was really cool to explore that element of my
Yeah.
desire that I hadn't really explored so much. So there's always new things, right? Like
Absolutely.
our
Yeah.
eroticism kind of we've come full circle. It's like always evolving and changing, hopefully, as we do.
Yeah, and that's the thing, and it does often look and feel quite artistic, really. And the shibari and things like that, they're not. That's absolutely not about penetrative sex at all. It's
Mm,
about how you look and feel, and as you say, you are giving part of your freedom away, and you're trusting somebody else to be able to address that safely and securely. But still, you are giving that feeling to somebody else, which is a big turn on by itself. And then you have the benefit of seeing what it looks like afterwards. So yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's super cool.
I've got two more questions, if that's okay. I'll
Yeah,
take them all right.
go for it.
One of which is what do you so you're quite an addictive personality, you said in the beginning, which I very much relate to. I stopped drinking 14 years ago for that very reason. Not that I was an alcoholic, it just didn't feel, and I stopped smoking and lots of other things. Because I know if I don't know, had a line of coke or something, then that'd be it. I'd be obsessed with getting the best one. Where can I try this and try that? I want to really fully go into it, no matter what it is. It's weird, really. It's
Yeah.
even like I don't know. You have cheese, and you want to try all the different cheeses,
Oh,
and you become
yes.
obsessed with something.
It's easy
So
to get
I'd
addicted.
be so What do you think the future looks like for you? Are you a sort of 10-year plan person? Are you a next week plan person? In terms of personal and professional, what do you think the future holds?
I used to be a 10-year plan
Mhm.
person. Um, but I don't ever stick to my plan. So, I stopped being a 10-year plan person. Um, and I know that I am someone who's multi-passionate. I know that I will continue to do different things
Yeah.
and go on different learning pathways throughout my life. I think I'll continue to build in this realm of sexuality and intimacy for a while anyways, if not
Mhm.
forever. But I love to write. I definitely see myself, kind of going more into that skill set and developing that skill set more and doing more writing books, teaching through my writing
Yeah.
is something that I really love to do. Certainly teaching through, group events and group classes, which I do a little bit now. And
Mhm.
I used to do a lot more when I was working in health and wellness. And now I'm kind of really loving like my one-on-one and couples work that I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm really loving the space that I'm in with that. And I definitely see that shifting down the road. Exactly how, um, I don't know yet, but I think I'm just really trying to be here, now, and I do know that I'll continue to keep growing and learning. That's just who I am. And, yeah, seeing where it all takes me.
I do think that's one of the most important traits is wanting to keep learning new stuff. And I just can't imagine. And I keep saying to the children, I know you're learning now and it's school and it's exams and things, but please, please, please never ever lose that personal desire to learn something new, no matter what it is. No matter, I look at the picture on your wall and think, wow, that's great. I'd love to know who the artist is. And I'm going to learn something new every day. And I
Mhm.
think that's what life's about, really. I
Yeah.
think it's, and so I just finished a Master of Science and I actually got my results yesterday
Wow.
in
Congrats.
behavior change. So I
Oh,
got my dissertation back, got a distinction. So I was super happy. But again, so I can
that's
say to the children, look, thank
incredible.
you. No, thank you. I haven't told anybody that. So thank you. It's
Wow.
I just really wanted to keep learning something, and it was something
Yeah.
new. And then the children can't say, well, you don't know what it's like to do. Well, yes, I do.
Yeah, I was just
I
doing
think they're like,
it.
oh, for goodness sake, Daddy, come on now, yeah. And then
Yeah.
my final question, and this is one I always was very curious about and very sensitive to. So you obviously put a lot of your mental and physical energy into working with the clients. You want the best outcome from them. You're giving a lot of yourself to them. So how do you protect your own mental and physical well-being so you don't go? So you do have some distance from you and what you're delivering.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I've gotten a lot better at that over the years. Creating a lot of spaciousness in my day is something that I do pretty
Mhm.
religiously. I'm not perfect at it. There are certainly days that are I schedule too much, but generally, I know I need lots of transition time, but from one thing to the next, I need to eat like every couple hours, so I build in time for that. Um, getting outside, taking a walk, um, scheduling self pleasure dates with myself or sex dates with my partner, making sure that like I'm prioritizing my own pleasure and I'm kind of walking the talk, so to speak, because I can be very achievement goal like productivity oriented, yeah, kind of like in my head like what's next, follow the plan, follow the schedule. But I find that like a big part of why I do the work that I do is it just
Yeah.
helps me orient my life more around play and pleasure, and fun and being in the moment and being in my body, listening to what my body needs and wants, and trusting that and following that. So I'm not perfect at it. I'm far from perfect at it. But building in, I think the biggest thing that I do for myself is building in lots of transition time and spaciousness in my day,
Yeah.
and not really working weekends at all. Just weekends
Mhm.
are for whatever I want to do or have to do to take care of myself. Yeah.
It's super important to be able to then we
Mhm.
can show up as ourselves then. I once went to see a therapist, and I think it was somebody sort of came out of the room, and I sort of walked straight in. And then when
Mm.
I came out, there was somebody sitting in the waiting room, and I thought, I just don't feel it. I can't see how she can get the break, or she must just conveyor belt, which I think is,
Uh-huh.
yeah. I think, yeah, doing appointments so you have a break in between, just to allow things to sort of settle down. You can start, right. Okay, here I am. It's a new me, not a hangover from the last session. So no, I think
Yeah.
you're very sensible to think that. I think it's super important.
Yeah, to be really available for the person who's in front of me and not
Yeah,
just like in a
yeah,
frenzy.
yeah.
Like I have to be attuned to myself and I have to be able to attune to my client. In order to do that, I need time to settle
Hmm.
before the session. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, thank you very, very much for your time, your openness. I learned a lot. So no, it was lovely to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for having me.